Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, I don't apparently have any of my lighting on or anything. Holy crap, Ben. You're supposed to be on top of this and keep me in check, man. There we go.
Listen.
So, tonight we are on episode 281, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about gear testing. Kind of what we're in the process of testing, and more about the thought process and what we do to test gear. And the whole thing that brought this on, which Ben and I were just talking about before the episode came on here, was I was telling Ben, and specifically about this little flashlight, about the rigorous testing I do, or what I consider rigorous. Maybe it's less compared to some of you folks out there, I don't know. But the main question was, do most people test their gear to some extent? Like, not just in this case, and we'll talk about it in a minute, like turn it on and go, oh yeah, it's a flashlight, turn it off, throw it down, and that's the end of it. Or do you kind of like super test things, which is kind of like what I do. And not just with everything, but with the good majority of stuff I have, especially, and what you said, Ben, was real true. Cost versus reward. And something like this, it was great, but I mean, I'm not going to beat the crap out of my truck and see if it can take a 6-foot drop. You know what I mean? Like, there is some realistic expectations in here. But I tested this thing to everything it said it could do. You know what I mean? But at the same time, $5 light.
I mean, you would test your truck to a certain level. If it's a trail you plan on going down, or type of trail you plan on going down, you're going to drive it and see if it can do it. And then you have an idea of what you can do. Now, if you say, there's a 50% chance the truck's not coming out of this, you're probably going to stop and say, no. Like,
50% is a little heavy. There's about a 30% chance I'm going to stop. I'm pretty gutsy. You know what I mean? It depends if I'm by myself or not and if I have to walk.
Yeah. And what level of damage? Like, am I looking at a missing valence, or am I looking at replacing the entire front end?
Yeah. Funny enough, I got a story about that. I'm not going to share it on the podcast, but I'll share it with you later on. I almost did tear the entire front end off my truck once. But like I said, whole other story. But yeah. I know we each kind of have some, I don't want to say, we got a couple irons on the fire each of things we're looking at and testing and researching. And we have made fun in the past of how much we meticulously test and research things. But there is kind of a point in reasoning to it. There is a method to the madness. And that's kind of what I wanted to dive in here tonight. Maybe it'll help some folks out there that are just getting into bushcraft, or they've been into bushcraft or camping, survival, whatever you want to be, for a little bit. And they're wondering what gear to get. And if they get that gear, how they should test it. Is it going to hold up the way they want it to? Is it going to do what they want to? Is it going to meet their needs? And this is kind of the way I look at my testing. Those are the questions I ask myself when I start doing some testing. Is it going to do what I want? Which is question number one. If I'm buying a flashlight and it's not bright enough, then it's no point to it. Is it going to hold up to how I intend to use it? Once again, with the flashlight, if I get a flashlight and I'm expecting to take it like in a survival kit or something like that on the canoe, and I'm going to be throwing the bag around and stuff like that, and it's made of like super delicate glass and it shatters every time you look at it sideways, it's obviously not going to do what I want it to do. And the second thing is, the third thing is, does it live up to the expectations that it provides? So it's great if the product says it can do everything, but does it actually do it? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No, it's true. We know it's not going to do everything, but is it going to do everything we need it to do? And yeah, go on. You're on a roll. I sorry to...
Well, no, the only thing I was going to end that off with was a lot of products, and especially on the budget side of things, they promise the stars, and you're generally lucky to hit the top of your head. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to talk smack about a lot of sites, but I mean, in the past, I've bought a lot of stuff from GearBest, which is now basically Team U and all that stuff. There's tons of sites out there where you pay very little money to potentially get high-quality products. And not high cost, but high quality. Yeah, I said it right the first time. And you have no real way of knowing until you get it in your hands and actually start playing with it. And I have come up with some really excellent gold nuggets of stuff that I paid pretty much nothing for. And I've come up some real turds, too, that I've paid more than I wanted to for. And that's kind of where I brought myself here tonight, which is the two products I was going to talk about and the methods that went into this. And Ben knows a little bit about what I'm talking about. And for everybody that's been playing along at home, these are actually a couple of the products that I did some reviews on while we were out in our vacation at the cabin and stuff. I was originally going to turn most of these products into like those 1 minute reels, and I was talking to Steve about it and things like that. But believe it or not, the flashlight far exceeded my expectations, and I may actually do a full-length video on this one because this is a product that I think a lot of people should grab for the cost it is and have tucked away. Versus this thing here, which is a Zippo branded fire starter, which I think I paid around $30 for, and honestly, I was horribly disappointed with it. I mean, I get what they were going for. It just did not live up to the expectations that were on the package, if that makes any kind of sense. And that's kind of where this all led into. It was just, when I got into the testing, like when you read the package and how to use it and all that stuff, this thing promised the moon. And man, I didn't make it past my ankles. So, yeah. And I know you got some stuff on the go too there, Ben. And I'll let you talk about what you were doing because I don't want to step on your toes on that because you know more about it anyway.
Well, I have a few things on the go. I mean, and I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that recently I've tested, and I'm still testing, and I will be testing in the next couple of months. And one of them is I picked up a new waterproof duffel bag. And I had an old one. I used it a bit. There was a couple of things I was disappointed in about it. And I'm like, it's water resistant at best, mainly because of the zipper and stuff. I want something that's a little bit better to throw on the back of the bike because it is important when I get to location that I have dry gear, and especially if I'm going to be kayaking, canoeing, or doing anything relatively stupid, which is the norm for what I'm going to try and so yeah, I don't take it and literally throw it in the lake to see if it comes out dry. But I'm going to drive through rainstorms. I'm going to throw it in the bottom of a boat where there's water. I'm going to not worry about pulling it in underneath the tarp every night because that's sometimes awkward and not comfortable. So with the bike, it lives on the back of the bike. That's where it belongs. But I open it up and I pull out what I need and I leave it there unless I'm doing something where leaving the bag there would be a detriment. So that's one that I'm testing and I'm fairly pleased with right now. And if anyone's interested in hearing about that particular product, they can reach out to me and I'll talk about it. The other thing I think you're probably alluding to is I have been doing a ridiculous amount of research on quote unquote solar generators.
Yeah, and this is something I had a little interest in the past and never really pursued, but you seem to be doing quite well on this little rabbit hole of an adventure.
So, some background noise, because I think, or an explanation of this, because I think this is kind of outside of the bushcraft realm, but it's not outside of car camping and base camping systems, right? And so I've done a couple of trips in the last month or so, and a couple of things have become pretty apparent. On really hot days, it's hard to keep food cold in coolers. We're going through a large amount of ice. Ice has not always been readily available further back. And, I like to eat well. So how can I do that? How can I extend this stuff? And I mean, some of these pictures you see for some of these stuff, you see people way out in the middle of nowhere with this 30, 40 pound solar system. And, they didn't drag that back there. Like you have to have, in my opinion, like some kind of wheels, at least a cart to move this stuff around reasonably. But it's great for the back of the SUV or the back of the van, or if I'm just canoeing into a spot without portages, I could take this system. So I've looked at two things. One, I'm looking at a decent two-way, if I can find it, it's really hard to find, a three-way refrigerator or cooler that's portable. Ideally on wheels, so I found a couple I like. They're mostly two-ways at 12 volts and 120 volts. So if I'm at home, I can pre-plug it in, have it pre-cooled. When I'm traveling in the van, it can run off van power, but what do I do when the van's not running? So there's these power stations, and I've been doing the math. How long can one of these run? How much charge can it take from a solar panel? How big do the solar panels have to be? How much light do I have to have? And I mean, there's a lot of math to this.
And that's the thing a lot of people would miss. They would just grab whatever solar panel happened to be on sale with whatever solar bank happened to connect to it and whatever cooler kind of plugged into the whole system. And you hit the nail right on the head there. You have to make sure that the bank can power the cooler and the solar panel can power the bank. Otherwise, you're going to have a cooler for like 10 minutes and blow everything up. Or potentially cause a lot of unnecessary wear on some gear too, which is a major thing that people miss by not doing the proper research on it.
Yeah. So there's technology. There's two types of batteries that are really popular now: lithium ion or LiPo. What is it? LiFePO4.
Lithium
So
polymer?
if you look it up, what?
Is that lithium polymer?
Lithium iron. I can't remember what the P stands for. I should know what P stands for.
Phosphate?
Yeah,
P is
oxygen.
phosphorus.
Yeah. So this is the better battery choice because it can take more full discharges and recharges before it shows degradation. Where lithium ion, which a lot of our power tools and stuff are powered with, have about 1,000 cycles before you start to see like 80% of its life. Like it's only producing 80% power. The LiFePO, they're pushing out about 3,500 to 4,000 cycles. And the warranty for that is if you use it almost daily, you can get close to 10 years out of this.
That's pretty good.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of charges in all honesty. But once again, minor things that aren't minor things. People may just be like, oh, all batteries are the same. You know what I mean? All batteries aren't created equal. Before we move on, I just want to say hi to Steve. He's joined us in the comments here, the Drifting Spore. And a huge congratulations to him on his recent certification.
Yes.
If he's listening, I'll see if he'll let me tell everybody what he got there, but I don't know. Maybe he wants to drop that bomb on his own. But once again, congratulations, Steve. If you're listening, let me know if I can tell everybody about it. On the flip side of that, one of his friends there, I think her name's Jessica Gavin or Gavin. I'm not sure if I said that right, Steve. Please help me, man. But anyway, if you live in the Sackville area in Nova Scotia, she is doing a foraging walk. So what I gather from this, from her Facebook page, is basically they're going to go on a nature walk and she's going to do some like edibles with an emphasis on mushrooms. I wish I was closer. It's August 15th from 6 to 8 p.m., so it's in the evening. Shouldn't be too hot. If I was closer, I'd go in a heartbeat. So if anybody's out there and they're looking for something to do, definitely go over. It's completely free. You'll learn a lot. And I promised I'd give a shout out to that there and to Steve. Let's see. Being pretty go for it, man. So yeah, Steve has recently been certified as a civil therapist practitioner. So basically, it's tree bathing. I mean, I think I got that if it's directly translated, but tree therapy. Getting out into the woods, and we've talked about this in the past, the therapeutic properties of being in nature. Steve got himself certified in this stuff, which is kind of cool. It's kind of neat.
So what you're saying is we can go bathing with Steve?
We can go forest bathing with Steve. Now, I'm hoping... screw it, I don't care. I'm hoping there's an option for clothes or non-clothes and stuff like that. You know, we could have a lot of fun with this. I don't get embarrassed, so I don't care either way.
Steve, you're in the wrong crowd now.
So yeah, he literally just got certified. I think he just finished it up last night. I just seen him posted on his account today. Once again, yeah, Steve, congratulations, man.
I liked it. So yeah, awesome, Steve. Good job. Yeah, so back to what I was saying, battery, how much drain is the items? What are you planning on charging? There's a lot to these things. So when you're looking for something, make sure that it should meet everything you want it to do and maybe a little bit more. And I think my theory is at least 20% more. So if I need something that can go 100 miles, I'm looking for something that's advertised at 120 or better. Like, I don't go for the minimums, and that's because I don't trust the minimums. You know what I mean?
Well, let's look at sleeping bags in this manner. They say, oh, it's a 0-degree sleeping bag. What they don't tell you is that's a 0-degree survival rating. You're going to be cold, you just won't die.
Yeah. And I, for one, like living.
Yeah, and I like living comfortably. So if you're looking for a 0-degree sleeping bag, you should be looking at, realistically, like a -10 sleeping bag. If you're looking for a -10 sleeping bag, you should be looking at a -20 sleeping bag, or maybe even a -30 sleeping bag to be really comfortable. Your bare minimums and advertised, keep in mind that's like the absolute best they can get out of it with everything going the right way. Fuel mileage in vehicles is perfect for this. You see, Let's see, a car that's supposed to get, let's say, 43 mile a gallon. That means it's 43 mile a gallon, flat ground, 80 kilometers an hour, no incline, no breeze, no headwind, potentially a tailwind. You know what I mean? Like, you generally don't get into the specific instances that they test these things at. Thus, why Ben is saying you should go a little above. Get a little more. That way, you have a little less or a little more flexibility in your tolerances.
Yeah. The thing I often say is you want to be able to grow into your kit. And for me, sometimes that's literal, but other times, like, yeah, this is what you're doing today, but in the future, and your goals in the future, will this still accommodate you? So, for example, if you're looking for a canoe and you're like, well, I'm not planning on camping with it, so I can get one that can hold my body weight and just a few pounds more. Then you're like, that's fine. But then if you decide you want to take a friend or a pet, or you do want to start camping, you're going to regret buying that minimum canoe.
Absolutely. And then there's the other side of this. Don't go too big either. Like, I bought a canoe, and I have no regrets on this canoe. Don't misunderstand. It did fit the need I wanted at the time. I wanted a canoe that was going to take 3 people. I ended up with a 17.5 foot or 18 foot canoe, whichever way you want to look at it. Works great for 3 people. Not great for just me. I maybe should have dialed that back a little and split the difference, but between you and I think I'm just going to buy another canoe.
Yes. That's there's a formula for that.
Is there?
Yes. N plus 1 equals the amount of canoes you need.
And what's N?
Where N is the current amount of canoes you have.
I love it. But yeah.
It works for motorcycles and other gear too.
Oh, I'm thinking it can work for a lot of stuff.
You know I live by that, right? Like,
I live by that in a lot of things. Once upon a time, I was heavy into paintball, and that was the whole methodology behind it. Now I'm old and fat, and I don't do it as much, but I still know what you mean.
Motorcycles, canoes, camping gear, just in general. Yeah. Backpacks. You always need another backpack.
Oh, always. I have too many now. And I keep getting them, too. Like, I'll find one and be like, do I really need this? Absolutely not. Am I going to get it? Yeah, probably.
But why? Because we like to test it. And does it work well? Does it fit well? Does it carry the gear I want? Does it carry it nicer? Is it more comfortable? Does it offer other advantages? So yeah, when you're testing gear, you're testing for all these things. You're definitely testing for, is it usable for me? And just because, Robert or Ben says this is a great product, doesn't mean it truly is. It means it was a great product for Robert and Ben. It may not be the perfect product for you.
No, and that's just it. And that's why I said from the start, you kind of got to temper what you're testing with what your needs are. And just like you were there, Ben, with the solar stuff, you know what you want it to do, so you know how to test for that. And sometimes you get pleasantly surprised. So once again, kind of dialing back to my flashlight here, because this is what I have to relate to, because unfortunately I did not do the research on the solar stuff. Like, I found these flashlights. It's a 3-pack. They were $5, Princess Auto. They claim that it's just a water-powered flashlight. So nothing more than plain curiosity drew me towards this flashlight. And I've since looked it up on Amazon. They actually go for $30. They're actually $10 a piece for these little lights. So if you happen to be out at a Princess Auto anywhere in Canada and see these suckers still on sale for $5, it will be the best $5 you've ever spent. And like I said, I'm probably going to do a full video on this. But in short, these things literally run on water. And they claim to have, and it just kind of looks like a lighter. It's almost dead now, but it's not that it's dead, it's just that it dries. The first time I used this, like the testing or what they claim on here, is it has a 100-hour runtime. And I was like, 100 hours seems like a long time for a flashlight, you know what I mean? Especially one that runs on water. Reality is it's over 100.
It's 4 days solid, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's running.
5 days is what I got out of this. However, it started getting dimmer after 24 hours. By 5 days, I mean it was barely on. So I thought, okay, that's it. That's the end of this flashlight. And then I said, well, just out of curiosity, I wonder what happens if I dunk it back in the water again. Dunked it back in the water, right back to brand new. And that's kind of the cool thing about these water-powered flashlights and why I'm going to pitch them right now for everybody if you can get a hold of them. They're sealed inside like individual pouches so they don't accidentally take on water from the air or anything like that. They are an amazing little thing to just throw in your glove box, in a survival pack, in your boat bag, whatever the case may be. If you can pick them up for a good price, because I have been so impressed with this little light. So anybody that's interested in a great little survival flashlight, keep an eye out for the video I'm going to be releasing on this thing. The quick and dirty off it is, it's not the brightest flashlight on the planet, but it is not advertised as such. It is advertised literally just as a water-powered flashlight for personal use, great for camping, outdoors, and emergency use, which is exactly what I would recommend this thing for. For, like I said, just to throw in the cubbyhole of your car, truck, ATV, motorcycle, backpack, in your boat bag, whatever the case, if you need a flashlight, you can basically spit on this thing. And I'm not going to tell you how I know that, but hand, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, extreme testing here, and you can get a little bit of light coming out of this. If you have a water bottle, you can power this thing for 100 hours, dunk it again, and I mean, that was like, it's still on. Once again, not the brightest, but it's a survival light. You know what I mean? It's better than not having a flashlight. Am I going to compare it to an O light? Absolutely not. But an O light's $100. I paid $5 for 3 of these.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure can.
When you do the review of this, and you have to now, can you sing This Little Light of Mine?
Might be the credits for you. Post-credit extra.
It needs to be you, a cappella.
I'll just be walking in the dark and you'll see the light and me singing, "This little light of mine." Yeah, okay, we got it.
Yes. Plan.
Now we're going to go record some more stuff. But anyway, that's the kind of testing I do with my gear. Like, I bought it. There's 3 of them. I didn't have high expectations for it because of the cost. And I was like, I wonder how it's going to work. I never really had bought into the water-powered stuff. I always assumed, you know, okay, for the price I paid, maybe I'll get this dim little light. When it's freshly dunked, for the first 24 hours, this is actually fairly bright. Like, you know what I mean? In the woods, in a dark area, it's going to be enough that you can see a path. We tested it a little bit, like just holding it in my mouth, and if I had to do a suture or something on my arm, apply a bandage, apply a sling, like it gives enough light, you can do what you need to do. You just... It's not like this one over here, which, you know, my magnet, this thing here is supposed to be like, I don't know, 25,000 candle power or something like that. Like, this thing looks like a small sun going off when I turn it on. But it's not that. There's a difference, you know what I mean?
I have one of those at the camper. But yeah, I mean, and what does it say? Like, before, like, well, it's still sealed in the package. It's good for like 100 years or something?
Indefinite. As long as you do not unseal it, and this was the big thing that drew me in, once it is open, 25 years. As long as it stays sealed in its little plastic thing, it's indefinitely good. As long as it is never exposed to any kind of moisture, this thing will never go bad. So now that's the next thing I'm going to test.
Buy a few 100,000 of them, and you have flashlights for the rest of your generations.
Well, what I plan to do, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to hit the in-laws up because they're actually up there in not too far from the Princess Auto in Halifax. I'm going to go make them buy all of them. There was only like maybe 20 of these left when I was up there, so I assume there might be 5 or 6 left now, but at $5 a piece, I don't care. Even if there's 20 left, guess what? I'm buying all of them, and I'm going to try one in a year, and then I'll try one in 5 years, and then just if I'm still alive and we're still doing this, hopefully, I'm going to try one in 10 years. Like, that's the kind of mentality I have.
Yeah, no, it seems pretty good. Honestly, like it's a solid choice. So again, let's cap, because I know we're at the 30-minute mark coming up anyways, and that's our new goal. Yeah, we always said test your gear, and I don't think we really explained too much how. Think about what you're going to do and test it in a realistic scenario, and possibly a little bit more. So if you're testing a hammock, make sure that you and a bit more weight can stay in it. Throw your pack in there or something just to make sure that it holds up. Trust me, it's really scary when it falls in the middle of the night. Test that
Nothing's
you can
quite as
set it,
disturbing as something falling on you when you're asleep.
or when water sloshes around underneath you.
Listen, you're not going to let me live that down, are you? I swear I thought the lake flooded, man. I I still stick to that to this day. I was
I know you
terrified
do.
that Steve down in that hole was already swamped.
But rightfully so, honestly. To give you credit where credit's due. It was, you're in a small space, and all of a sudden you feel water underneath you, and there's only a few logical ways that's going to happen. And what did happen is not something you expected.
No,
So,
but
uh,
and if anybody doesn't
but
know that
yeah,
story, maybe we'll do a stories episode again and we'll talk about that stuff then.
but testing your gear to make sure it'll keep you dry, it'll keep you safe, it'll get you through the night. That you know how to set it up and tear it down and put it away. It's no good to take a whole bunch of brand new gear, pack it in a bag, get out there and find out it never fits back in that bag ever again, and you're coming out with an armful of stuff and a pack full.
Hint,
Right?
hint, air mattresses, trying to jam them back in the box they come out of. It's not that
Yeah.
easy unless you try it and play with it a few times, you know what I mean? And generally, we're not taking like air mattresses camping with us. We usually sleep in hammocks or we have sleeping pads. But when we went to the cabin camping, we took an air mattress just to make an extra bed because I don't think I ever had you to the cabin. I had Steve when he was still alive. I took him to the cabin, but it's basically bunk beds, right? So we threw Willie in one of
Yeah.
those, and we brought the big air mattress for Mel and I, and the dog. And it's still sitting over on my couch because we still can't get it back in the box.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Tents, sleeping bags, a lot of these things sometimes don't fit back in a container you originally expected it to. I noticed tents are now coming with an expansion slot, and I haven't had to use it on any of mine. I've always been able to get them back in the bag reasonably well. But it's been a problem. It's been a common complaint about people is, oh, the bag it was shipped in, it never fits back in it again. Like it's
And that's the
right.
thing. Here's a hint, folks, while we're still on under our half hour, is in the event of something like a hammock, a tent, a sleeping bag, carefully watch how it comes out and read the recommendations on how to put it back in. Believe it or not, most of these things when you buy them are going to have instructions on how to fold it back up to put back in its own container. Most people turf that and think they have it. It's worth the 5 minutes to read it because there may be a simple little hint that you got to do one thing in a specific order to make it fit back in. For instance, my tent, if you just kind of fold it over and try and put it back in, it's never going to go. You have to start folding it by one side or it's never going to work. Just, little things to know. Read your manuals, do your testing. Don't find out in the woods this crap's going to go south. Buy a tent. Hey, can I get it back in the bag? Set it up in your lawn or in your living room, if depending on the size of the tent and your size of your living room. I've done that before. An inflatable bouncy castle for my kid. We got it for her for Easter. I had it set up in the living room and blown up while the girls were away just so I could test it and make sure I knew how this thing worked. This is not just for our survival and camping gear and bushcrafting gear and stuff like that. This is good stuff on how to test anything you're playing with in life.
Oh man, we always test all year, and I have set up tents inside. I've set up tents in a lot of weird places just to see how does it work. What do I need to do? Is there enough of like tent pegs? A lot of tents don't come with enough tent pegs to set it up properly,
No, absolutely not.
right?
But that's why we generally don't make tent pegs. We just make them, or sorry, we don't bring tent pegs. We make them in the woods. Because I can tell you right
But
now, 9 times out of 10, they're not high quality enough, and they don't have enough to actually do what you want. You can stake the tent down or your tie outs down, but usually never both.
yeah. So yeah, I always set up for that and make sure that I have the things I need. And maybe I'll decide, okay, it doesn't come with the pegs, but the holes are too small to get homemade ones, like wooden ones through. So now I take loops and I oversize them so that I can do something with that. Um, yeah, checking your gear, making sure you have a plan. What if something goes wrong? What if it doesn't quite work? How can I extend it? How can I improve it? How can I fix it? And get that feeling for what it's capable of. Um, Everything is different, so you have to be an open mind and look at it from a lot of different directions.
Yeah, and that, once again, like the kind of running theme for the last few topics we've had here, these are thinking themes. We just want to get the juices flowing in your cranium and get you thinking about your gear. For those of you that already have it and you're seasoned veterans, for lack of a better description, or for those new folks out there that are just getting into it. Hopefully these episodes have been given a little bit to both parties. That's been the plan anyway. Once again, let's hear from you folks. What do you think? How do you test your gear? What do you do? What extents do you go to? I am genuinely curious on answers on this one. I know we usually throw it out anytime you have questions, give us stories and stuff like that, but this time I am legitimately throwing out there for anybody and everybody to contact us back with, how far do you test your gear? I am genuinely curious. I would love to follow up on this with a bunch of replies back in to see how far people actually push this. Because maybe I'm insane, maybe I'm going too far, or maybe I'm not going far enough. Like I said, I'm curious. You know what I mean? Where do we fit in the mix of the testing experience?
Yeah.
But, yeah, we come up to our 30 minutes there. I guess that's pretty much where we can end here for tonight. I mean, we could play Ring Around the Rosie, but I think we're just going to be circling back to stuff we already said.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and let us know. Is there anything in particular we talked about that you would like to know more about? And is there anything you are researching presently that you think we might be interested in? Because we aren't running out of ideas yet, but we're always interested in what other ideas are out there.
For sure. And we always love the requests, folks, because that lets us know, one, you're listening, and two, what you folks are interested in. I mean, it's nothing for us to jump up here, pick a topic, and ramble off. As you can see, Ben and I love to talk. All we have done is basically turned the camera on and included you folks into our conversations, in all honesty. But what do you folks want to talk about, in all honesty? What is interesting you folks? Where would you like to see this podcast go in the direction of what you want to hear? I mean, we're not going to change the podcast. This is just how we are, folks. If you don't like us now, you're not going to like us later. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But what do you folks want us to talk about? Honestly, we can keep doing this. We're just trying stuff. We're almost at 5 years now. Is that how long we've been running? Coming up on 5 years? Over 5 years? I can't even remember now. 281 episodes, 52 episodes a year. 1, 2, 4, 5. We're over 5 years.
Yep.
So after 5 years and 281 episodes, we're curious, what do you folks want to see us do now?
How many episodes?
What are you looking up now? For anybody that's still hanging around, this is the end of the episode where we start rambling and jumping down rabbit holes. So hold on tight. This could get interesting. What are you looking up, Ben? How many episodes and what?
Simpsons has 768 episodes.
Not quite half yet, but they've been running a long time.
I'm just saying, it was one of the longest running shows in TV history, and their shows are half an hour, and most of our shows were an hour.
Yeah, we've only done the half hour for the last little bit, so you could probably double the number to, let's say, 400 pretty easily half-hour shows. And some of our episodes even ran longer than that, Ben. I was looking back. We had episodes that went like almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That's a full-length movie. Anyway, folks, once again, we jumped down a rabbit hole. But seriously, folks, reach out to us. What do you want to hear us talk about? Do you want us to do more testing? Do you want to hear more stories? Do you want to hear more gear reviews? What do you folks want to hear? It's great for us to get up here, pick a topic, and ramble out, but what do you folks want? We'd love to get the insight and see what you folks want to hear. We want to tailor this to you folks. We're going to talk anyway. That's the matter of this, you know what I mean? You just give us a direction and say go.
General.
All right, folks, we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good one. Bye now.